So here we are. We're going to start talking a little bit about D-Star. I'll confess, I remember the first D-Star radio that I bought. It was an ID31, so a little legacy D-Star radio that was out, probably about 10 years ago. And after about 3 months, I just wasted about $400. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And that really, really sucked. It was a 4-month learning curve of this doesn't make sense to me. So how many people have a D-Star radio? Right, pretty. How many people go, this doesn't make sense to me? You're in the right place. And you're in good company as well. So I want you to know that. So we're gonna walk through some of the fundamentals on the earlier parts of this presentation. It's going to sound like Swahili. You're going to wonder, what does that mean? We're going to get into it a little bit deeper as we go on, but I expect us to last, probably about 30, 45 minutes. We'll actually have some live demos going on as well. I got my repeater just a short distance away from here. We'll be able to link into it, and we'll also show some of the common errors that people make and what happens when you make those errors, what the repeater tells you back. So some big stuff there for sure. So any questions before we launch? All right. Hopefully I'm on the right screen. It looks like I am. It's not doing what it should be doing. Yeah.
And I do have a question.
I am listening.
This presentation is going to be uploaded.
Yes, it's actually recorded. So we're live now. Hi, everyone. Well, we're not live. It's being recorded. So probably within a couple of days, it'll be uploaded to our YouTube channel. Hey, look at that. We're going to do it the old-fashioned way. So what is D-Star? Believe it or not, D-Star is kind of like the older big brother in amateur radio digital. It actually started back in 2001, and it stands for Digital Smart Technologies for Amateur Radio. The Japan Amateur Radio League developed it in 2001. So hard to believe, 25 years ago is when D-Star came out. Some people think D-Star is relatively new. Like I said, it's the older brother that just got out of college. What it does provide is for digital voice and digital data to be transmitted simultaneously. So if you remember back on the Fusion presentation last month, same thing applies. There's some space for voice transmission and there's space for the data transmission that takes place within 12.5 kilohertz. Voice gets 6 ampere, the data gets 6 ampere. And you may be wondering, what does that mean? Well, getting into that here a little bit. It supports reflectors. So think of reflectors as kind of a chat room. So you may hear reflectors referred to as an REF reflector, an XRF reflector, an XLX reflector, or a DCS reflector. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then also the latest radios, such as I brought with me an ID52. So this is one of the more recent D-Star handhelds that have come out. Have a great feature called the DR mode. It really makes operating and programming a lot more simple than what it was under the legacy program. So if you had maybe an ID91 or an ID92, maybe an 880H mobile, that's okay. It'll still work. It's not because you have a legacy radio, it'll work on D-Star. That's not the case. It's just a matter of how it's programmed. The latest radios have that DR mode, which is really, really allow a really simplified way to get on the air and get your radios programmed. So some basic historical facts regarding D-Star. First hotspots were called DVAPs. How many had a DVAP? I had a DVAP. I think Paul had a DVAP. There was a DVAP, and that was actually the first time I started diving into Raspberry Pi. So that's We're not talking about the dessert. We're talking about the full computer boards. That was a joke. Kept people on. I tried. One of the first computer-only devices was a DD dongle, which is a D plus, which is the REF reflector. So the D plus reflector network was developed purely by hams here in the U.S., and that really drove the popularity of D-Star to really where it is today. And also, here recently, there's some Android software that's out that you can download an app like DroidStar or another app called P-Night that will get you onto D-Star without using the radio. Now, I get it. There's going to be arguments. It's not real ham radio. Well, guess what? It's over the internet. You're playing radio in some way, shape, or form. Your mobile device is a radio by some stretch of the imagination. So keep that in mind. You may see the little familiar character down the right-hand corner, R2D2. So one of the things that we learned last week about digital through System Fusion, you're either in the repeater or you're out. There's no in between. So unlike analog, if you're just on the outskirts of the repeater, you start breaking up. It's real crackly. Hey, guy, I can't hear you. Can you repeat again? Turn up your power type deal. Where on System Fusion and DMR, you're in and then boom, you could be gone. What's a little bit different on D-Star is that if you're on the outskirts of a repeater, your signal is actually going to sound like R2D2. That's what it's going to sound like. You should have more. Again, so let's talk a little bit about radio selection. So two parts that are in here we'll talk about. We'll talk about a little bit about the legacy radios that are out there. We'll also talk about the DR capable radios. So what makes a legacy radio and the DR capable radios inherently different from one another has to all do with memory programming. They still function the same way. They follow the same D-Star logic as it relates to linking, unlinking, call sign routing, things like that. They still work the same. The differences between the legacy and the DR all have to do with the memory and the programming. So on the legacy radios, you could have, let's just say we use my repeater, my D-Star repeater, 445.100. And I wanted to have a way to talk locally, a way to talk through my gateway, to talk to 3 different reflectors, to link, unlink, information. That almost takes up 10 memory channels. So it's a lot of memory channel programming that takes place. So it's really clunky and it can be really time consuming. And it's easy to screw something up at that because it's all manual programming. Even through software, there's still things that you have to walk through to make sure you get it right. Now on the DR capable radios, that uses the radio's GPS and then also either an internal database that comes with the radio or one that you can download from ICOM directly. And the ones that you download from ICOM directly, they're routinely updated. They're probably updated maybe 2-3 times a year that they're updated. But the cool part is that on the DR capable radios for ICOM, it'll use your radio's GPS and the database to allow you to operate and program the radio, which is really, really cool. So we'll see that on the ID31, the 51, the 52, the 4000, and the 5100. It really makes it easy. Now, the Kenwood also has a DR feature as well. The legacy Kenwood, the THE74, and then its successor, the D75, also has a DR feature. Now, what makes the two different is that if you're doing a repeater search on an ICOM radio, you have a choice. You can pull only analog, or you can pull digital, or you can pull both. On the Kenwood, I believe you can only pull the digital, so you can only pull D-Star repeaters on that. So little run up on ICOM against Kenwood on that. And again, at this point, you may say, what is all this? Going to be a couple things next that are coming up that we're going to dive into. If you brought a notepad or you want to watch us online, this is the next few are going to be the things that you definitely want to pay attention to. So registration, although not mandatory per se, absolutely highly recommended. 99.9% recommend for me when it comes to that. The registration process, this is actually the website that you go to, regist.dstargateway.org/dstar.do. It is a two-step process. First, you got to make sure you're not already registered. There's a way you can check that. We'll see that on the next screen. You'll click on the registration instructions and follow them. Your call sign always has to be entered in caps. Very, very important. And when approved, you're going to get an email back with some very specific follow-up instructions. So as I said, it's a two-step process. One is to register, and the second is follow the instructions as they come back to your email. And we're going to start diving into some of that right now. So the U.S. Trust Server registration after approval, you're going to say, okay, in entry 1, you got to put a space. In entry 2, you got to put a Z, even if you don't plan on doing it. Well, what does that really mean? Well, here's what the screen's going to look like. So after your approval comes through, you're going to get the instructions. So under entry number 1, so this will actually be your call sign in here. So that's at N2SRK there. In entry number 1, which is right here, you're going to put a single space. So you just take your keyboard and hit space. It's kind of a really neat way that the U.S. Trust Server is making sure, yeah, this person's serious and actually wants to get into it. Now, the second part that you have here, this is going to be your Z entry. So even if you're not using a terminal data mode, which is just a purely digital mode as it relates to data transfers within DSTAR, it doesn't hurt to actually put your Z in under entry number 2. It doesn't hurt anything. There's no harm in creating it. It's not going to goose anything up. Just do it. I mean, very simple, because you might come down the line like I did at one point and went, oh man, I never did that. Well, guess what? If you're trying to go through any of the U.S. trust servers on DSTAR, if you don't have that in there, you're not going to be able to do anything. So even if you don't plan on using it, put it in there. Very, very important. Any questions there? Take a quick pause for questions. So how many step process is it? 2. What's the first one? Registration. The second one is following instructions. I know when I get a new HC or a new radio, this book comes with it. I don't know what the book is. I put it aside and let's hope this puppy dog up and see what happens.
The right arrow work.
What's that?
Right arrow work.
No, it didn't. I was banging on the right arrow, the page down. So next screen's here. I'm going to go through this, and again, you're going to be at a point where you go, what does this mean and how does it apply to my radio programming? So there's 4 items that are needed to program a DSTAR radio. First one is what's called my call. Second is what is called UR call. Some people call it your call. I call it UR call. Purely from the standpoint of, wait a minute, you told me my call and your call. Wait a minute. I don't know what that means. So my call and UR call, RBT1 and RBT2. You may be wondering, what does all that mean? Get into that in a second. So all the fields within my call, UR call, RBT1 and RBT2 are all 8-character designators. And those designators are also commands. We'll talk about what commands mean here shortly. So my call is your personal call sign. So in my radio, under my call is N2SRK, because that's my call sign. For Robert, it would be AE0CA. For Randy, K0TNG. So my call is your personal call sign. UR call It can be the same, and we're going to get into this, and I'll show you where this is. The same as the 2 in a DR mode. It uses the repeater, hotspot, and call sign reflector, where to send commands. More or less, you're saying, this is where I want it to go. This is what I want my command to do, and this is where I want it to go. Now, RBT1 is the call sign of the actual repeater you're using, or the repeater designator. So how many have like a D-star hotspot now? So in your D-star hotspot, when you program your radio under RBT1 is probably your call sign. So the same as my call, but it is your call sign because you've identified your call sign with your terminal node or your hotspot. Thank you. There's the word. Your hotspot at home. RBT2 is the call sign of the repeater for the hotspot with a gateway designator. So what does that mean? D-star repeaters, if they are hooked up to a gateway, that's very important because that's your tunnel and pathway out to connecting to reflectors or other repeaters or through call sign routing. So making sure that you have RBT2 set up as well is also important. And 99 times out of 100, actually, I think 100 times out of 100, I can't think of a reason why it wouldn't be. But the RBT1 and the RBT2 typically are the same call signs. The difference between them is that RBT2, if you're going out onto the gateway, will have its own designator, which is G. I'll show you that here in a second. RBT2 will also, RBT2 also calls out the band and the gateway designator. So you may see K0 PRA B. People go, well, what's the B for? Well, the B identifies that's a UHF repeater. Now what? Yes.
RPT2, you have 2 shack locations. Is that RPT2 okay?
If you have 2 shack locations, will RPT2 change?
In other words,
No.
I have my gateway around 2.
Though one of the things you will want to watch is that you don't have 2 hotspots like in the same location or within the same radio shot of one another on the same frequency. Because then you're going to get this dreaded thing called a loop. That's going to happen. People get mad. You get emails over it. Don't ask me how I know. But it won't happen. How do you know that? You're going to hear me talk about command designators. So command designators are always in the A position. There'll be some graphics that come up on it here shortly. But typically, there are 5 different command designators. You're either going to want your radio to link somewhere. You're going to want it to unlink from somewhere. You're going to want to do an echo test. How many know what an echo test is? Yeah, so an echo test is like telling a repeater, all right, Parrot, talk. How do I sound? And the repeater will come back. If you do an echo test command, it'll come back and say exactly what you talked into your radio with. And then the last thing on there is the letter I command, which is the repeater info. Sometimes you come across a D-star repeater, they wonder, well, before I say I'm listening, I wonder if this thing is linked anywhere. One great way to find out is on that designator, you hit the I command, and the repeater will tell you exactly where it's linked. We'll have some demos of that here short. So think of UR or UR call as who would like to have to listen to this transmission. Even if you're using simplex, your UR call, when you want to have a QSO, will be CQ, CQ, CQ. Purely general traffic. You're not sending any commands. Does that make sense? We'll show you some screenshots of radios here in a second. So in the UR or the UR call, always have a set UR. And if you wanted to go to everyone, you're going to use CQ, CQ, CQ. It's kind of like the open pathway to that. Again, you're not sending any commands to the repeater. It's purely a QSO. It's purely a voice talk. Now, the UR string is also how we're going to issue DSAR commands, either to a repeater or hotspot. When I talk about repeaters and hotspots, I'm going to use those almost as if they're the same thing. Because your little hotspot at home is almost like a little mini repeater to begin with. So you're going to use, if I say repeater, it also applies to hotspots. If I say hotspots, it also applies to repeaters. Now, the UR string, again, 8 characters wide, and it's position dependent, and that those spaces absolutely matter. I'm going to use RT Systems to program. Very, very simple way. RT Systems has an amazing suite of amateur radio programming software. Very easy download. I know HRO sells them. You should download them online. The cables are relatively inexpensive. They're $25 or $30. I mean, not too bad. But probably the simplest way to program a DSAR radio is through the RT Systems, and they didn't pay you to say that. So here we go. The UR call field. So here are the positions and what they mean. So we talked about CQ, CQ, CQ. That is the general traffic that goes through on the UR call. Now, this is where it gets fun. UR call is also a way to send commands to your repeater or your hotspot. So in the second example here, where it says, you know what? I want to link to the XRF 330A reflector. Remember, it's 8 characters. So what's taking place is under the UR call, I'm designating, here's the XRF 330 reflector. I want it under their A module. You can tell me what that L means. Link. It's a smart group.
Yeah.
Communication group. Smart group. So again, any of the commands outside of CQ, 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 that 8th position is very, very important. For linking, it's always going to be an L in the 8th position. If you want to unlink, it's going to be a U in the 8th position. Unlink, U, unlink. If you want to do the parent test or an echo back mode, 8th position, E. You don't need anything in the front, just spaces. 7 spaces, letter E for your echo test. If you do an echo test, you key down N2SRK echo test, and the repeater should come back exactly now it heard you. You can hear it reply right back to you. We'll do a demo of that here in a little bit. And again, 8th position, if you want to know the repeater status, where it's linked, it'll tell you. Link to reflector 030 Charlie, or it'll say not linked, which is cool. So if it's not linked, you can link it somewhere. You don't have to link it anywhere. You can use it purely as just like as we do with an analog repeater. You can just have a QSO right there on the repeater. So again, this is a really good one. Good graphic I came across that describes the importance of those 8 character positions. So RBT1, think of it, and again, not to cause arguments, but think of it more or less as your PL tone or your CTCSS tone. So when to talk on a DSAR repeater, RBT1, you're going to set RBT1 to the call sign of that repeater and its module. We had talked about that a little bit earlier. So RBT1, we're going to K0 PRA's DSAR repeater on 70 centimeters. It's going to be K0 PRA space V. That's the V module. You may be wondering, well, why do the modules matter? When ICOM came out with their DSAR repeaters, the repeaters were called stacked. So you had a 2-meter repeater, you had a 70-centimeter repeater. You also had a 1.2 gigahertz battery repeater that was all built into it. Well, you needed to know what, if you were transmitting, it was good to know which one you were on, right? It's good to know if you're on A, D, or C. And again, D refers typically only to data-only access on those. On your hotspots, people will use B for 70 centimeters. You can also use D. Just make sure whatever you're setting up on your hotspot matches what you program in your radio, your designator. I always use B because that's my simple brain saying my hotspot's on 70 centimeters. I know 70 centimeters is B. I'm going to make sure that my hotspot calls it B as well. Again, 8th character position follows the same rules as what we talked about on the UR call. So here we go. At the RBT1 field. First one is this repeater, module B. Here's the second repeater, also module B, C, and D. Again, it's the repeater of the call sign that you're going to use and which module. Module is always in the 8th position. At 8th position, it's very, 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 very important. Many times people have called and said, I can't link somewhere, or I can't get into your repeater. This is typically one of the first questions they ask them. How many spaces do you have after the call sign? It's the B module in the 8th position. Well, let me see. No, I'm off by a space, and that will throw a little monkey wrench into it. Again, you got to remember, B-Star being the big brother, the older brother, 25 years old, he kind of set the rules of all of this. I realize it sounds really complicated. And if you've been frustrated with D-Star, you're in a great position because it took me about that 4-month mark where the light bulb went off. And I went, oh my God, this now makes sense. So if you're frustrated after a couple months, cool. You're frustrated after 3 months, cool. You're frustrated after 4 years, cool. Why you're here, right? So we can talk through that. On BT2, this is really where the repeater should be delivering worldwide traffic to. So if you leave RPT2 blank, it's only going to have local traffic. So think about it as if we were using our small repeater on 2-meter analog. And we just wanted to be on 2-meter analog, not on the All-Star network. Kind of hard to do with the way we have things set up. But the nice thing about D-Star is that you can have a local QSO. So think about it on the DMR side, tip of the cap for next couple meetings when we talk about DMR. You can have a local, and you can also have a link system or going out into the gateway. So for repeaters that are already linked, you'll hear remote sites, but they won't hear you. And I had that happen today. So I was having a QSO. I think Paul was on with me, and another ham who was up north. The three of us were talking. There was a 4th ham that linked into the repeater that we were using. And the 4th ham who linked in heard Paul, heard Barry, but did not hear me. And Paul and Barry were like, we hear Dan just fine. And this guy's like, I don't hear him. Well, guess what? My RBT2 was blank. I did not have it pointing to the gateway. So those guys were because we were all on the same repeater. The person who was outside the repeater range on the gateway didn't hear it. One of the things to keep in mind, so if you ever hear somebody who goes, I hear somebody else, but I don't hear that guy that you're talking to. If you're that guy or that gal, guess what? You probably don't have RBT2 set appropriately in your memories.
Can you fix it on the fly while you're talking?
You can. On the more current versions that have DR mode, absolutely you can. Takes a couple button swipes on the menu and get you loaded up there. And we'll show some of that here in a minute. So a little quick hint. Match RBT1 and RBT2. Just swap the module letters, ABC or A with a G. G means you're going out into the gateway on RBT2. So if you're using my repeater and you want to be on the gateway, you're going to have RBT1 set as N2SRK space D, because it's on 70 centimeter. RBT2 is going to be N2SRK space G. That puts you out onto the gateway. Now that G is not there, it's only going to be a local Q cell within the repeater range. Nothing will go out from there. Yes.
Oh, if you have G configured in RPT2 for all three, you can still do local communication. But if somebody can then on the gateway out there,
Yes. Yeah. Long turkey.
must be able to get it.
There we go. So there's 4 repeaters right there, or 3 repeaters on a hotspot. If you want your signal to go out onto the gateway, you want it to connect to a reflector to an XRF, connect to another repeater, make sure your RBT2 has the G set up in the gate designator. Very, very important. Without that G, you're not going anywhere but local traffic. So there's 4 examples of that there. Now let's put this all together in some way, shape, or form. So within my ID52 here, I have my call sign, my own call sign set up as N2SRK, which means that's who I am. Now the second one, you'll also have, it could list it as a text string that you can edit, but it's limited to 4 characters. So what I do is under the text string, I just put, I'm using my ID52. So when I transmit, it's actually going to show N2SRK/ID52. Also, we keep track of my rulers radio. Somebody else had it. Wait, it's been well said. The UR, so we talked about this, the UR call, CQ, CQ, CQ. That's traffic for all listeners. 99 times out of 100, that's what we're going to use. CQ, CQ, CQ. RBT1, if I'm using K0 PRA, note the spaces. The repeater's call sign on module B, which is 70 centimeters. So it's my radio saying, hey, repeater, I want to come in. The only way it's going to let you in is if RBT2 is set to the gateway. It's going to let you in the front yard if you don't have a gateway set, but it's not going to let you into the house unless you have the gateway or the G module set in RBT2. So there's a little bit of dynamic programming that needs to take place with N2SRK. Very complicated. I get it. I know. I was ready to throw the damn radio out. I first got it after 4. I was ready to sell the Paul. Maybe that was you're going to buy it for $50. I mean, I'm just don't radio anymore. So this kind of puts it all together when you're first starting to program your N2SRK radio. Screenshots. Here we go. So here's an example of DR mode. So the neat part within the N2SRK radios that have the DR mode is that it creates a near repeater list based upon your GPS location. Now it can be used without the GPS, just using the channel selector. So there's a bunch of different drop downs. If you want to go to US West, Colorado, you can just use the knob to turn through it. You don't have to use the nearest location on the GPS if you don't want your GPS enabled. The more modern N2SRK radios, the ICOMs, the Kenwoods, all that GPS built into them, which is really cool. The ID52 and the 5100 also support analog FM with the CTCSS and DR mode. So on the ICOM radios, like I had mentioned before, if you wanted to do a near repeater list based upon your GPS coordinates, the ICOMs will give you both the N2SRK repeaters and the analog repeaters, so long as you have the analog repeaters programmed in there. But it will give you both of those, which is cool. And you can separate. I just want to look at analog, here's your list. I just want to look at N2SRK, here's your list. I want to look at both, there's your list. all three will come up. You'll notice, how do I know it's on the DR mode? It will say it blatantly on your icon radio. DR, you are in DR mode. Now, a couple things that are going to be important with this. The switching between the to and the from using the radio buttons or on the 5100 mobile radio is a touch screen. To and from. You notice the difference between those. So the from is where you're coming from. So in this instance, the N7IH 70 centimeter repeater. How did you know that? Well, it says it right here in my memory. In Kirkland, that is where I'm transmitting my radio to hit. Under the to side of it, I want to get a hold of Toronto at ICOM. So that is where that is the to is also synonymous with the UR call. The from is your RBT1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to confirm, is he's seeing on his screen, he's seeing your call sign come through plus the repeater that it's coming from?
You'll just see my call sign that will come through as my GPS is on. It'll give my coordinates as to where I'm at. It'll tell them how far away I am from it in true miles, not how far I am from my repeater, but I'm getting a hold of my buddy Toronto at ICOM in Japan. Going to say, wow, that's a lot of miles between you two. And that will come up on your screen. So long as he has his GPS on as well. Now, how do we get there? Here's the cool part. So here's some menu hits. One thing that is very interesting that ICOM did, remember we were talking about RBT2 having the G to go out onto the gateway. ICOM made it even more fascinating is that in the to field, if I want my signal to be transmitted to somewhere, so it's a command or a link, or I want to go onto the gateway or CQ, ICOM added this little one here called local CQ. What do you think local CQ does? Yes, it'll automatically set you to local. So your RBT2 setting, it'll wipe out the G automatically. You don't have to program that. It'll just say, oh, okay, you just want to talk local. Now, if you do want to talk through the gateway, you're going to want to make sure that you're selecting, you'll select the reflector, link to a reflector, or use the reflector. If you select use the reflector and the system's already connected, if you hit use reflector, that's going to give you CQ. If you want to link somewhere else, cool part that they have here, you can actually do direct input, and you can arrow through whether you want an REF reflector, an XRF reflector, an ECS reflector, and you can just use not only the menu options on the radio, but also the turn knob as well. So in this case, when I was in St. Louis, I was on the St. Louis repeater there locally, and I wanted to link to reflector to Charlie. So again, you'll see the 8 character positions, REF002C to reflector to Charlie, and I'm sending the L command as well. So I'm telling the repeater, I want you to go here. That's what I meant. Now, it's also important with this is that when you link, so what do you think you need to do after you send the link command? Well, you're close. So if I key down and I send the link command to the repeater, I want you to connect to Charlie.
Use. Use. You late. So use.
Yeah, you're going to want to switch that to use the reflector. And when you would select the use reflector, guess what that's going to populate? CQ, CQ, CQ. You want that to go out to everyone. If you keep hitting link, the repeater's just going to say, okay, I'm late. Hey, link again, repeater. Okay, I'm late. Hey, repeater, link again. Hey, I'm late. How come I don't hear anything? You don't hear it. But if you transmit down, let's say it's a popular reflector. 30 Charlie is one of the popular ones. You're on a popular reflector and you keep hitting the link and like, hey, I want to talk to somebody. You keep hitting link. The repeater's just going to say, you're late. You're late. Your traffic's not going to go through because your link commands are local to the repeater itself, not throughout the gateway or pushing out. Halas. But they've done an echo test. Yeah. Very helpful, aren't they? I'm going to crank this all up here. Everyone's going to hear it. So this is my P-star repeater here locally. I'm going to unlike it.
Not like
Okay. It's not linked. Let's see how good I'm going to get in there. So what I'm doing here, I'm actually going to the echo test. That's only going to go through my repeater N2SRK echo test. N2SRK echo test. Pretty good. It worked. That's exactly how I'm being heard through the repeater, which is really, really cool. Now we'll go through. Now, if I keep saying, like, oh, cool, I did an echo test, it works. And I'm like, oh, K0TMG, N2SRK. Guess what's going to happen? Oh, sure, what? Because I'm sending the echo test command back again.
And is that going out over the air or
Yeah.
just okay?
Yeah, it's coming out. It's coming out over the repeater, so just locally. If you do an echo test, it's only local to the repeater or your hotspot.
Looks like everybody hears.
Yeah, everybody can hear it. Yeah, absolutely. So again, I'm done with the echo test. Probably going to go back to use reflector. The use reflector will show CQ, CQ, CQ. Let me back up here a quick second. Let me see this here. We'll go back to that set. So getting back to, if I wanted to connect to a reflector. So now we're linked to a reflector. Link it back to 30 Charlie. It's a quick key down.
break it R at 0 3 0 Charlie.
And so now the repeater is linked back to reflector 30 Charlie. Now, if I don't change my 2, if I don't change this back to use reflector, and I just say, oh, I want to talk to somebody, I just did it again. It's not going to give me anything because it's like, you're already linked there. Let's try to do it again. Like you're already linked there. But if I go, oh, use reflector, then I'm back on the gateway. So again, once you send a command, make sure you go back into your tune field and select use reflector or CQ, CQ, CQ. Make sense? So there's really 2 sides, the 2 and the from. Again, from is where you're sending it, more or less is where the repeater is going from. So it's either local or going out onto the gateway, one of the 2. Your 2 is the one that you're setting all the commands. I want you to link here. I want you to unlink from here. I want an echo test. Man, what are you hooked up to? What's the repeater information?
Break it R S03 Charlie.
So if for whatever reason you get hung up when you're transmitting, you go, this is not giving me anything. I'm trying to link and it won't give me anything. Quick hit, drop down to the information or the I command. And that will tell you exactly where the repeater is, which is pretty fascinating. Now, getting into the DR modes, the repeater list, some really cool things here. So again, this is more on the icon side. It also falls into the Kenwood side as well. Under your front side, I want to see a repeater list, USA West, and it will give that. A lot of the radios have these pre-programmed in there already, which is really cool. Now, it doesn't say you can't change them. Absolutely, you can, DR mode. And you can get regular updates through that, either through Icon's website. The one that I use, again, RT Systems, they seem to have their act together with very regular updates that take place. Well, landed. So again, a couple hints, the near repeater list, make sure your GPS is on. Good way to actually use the near repeater list, because the radio is going to want to know where you are. When you hit the near repeater list, it's going to pop right up. And again, you're going to be using that in the from side. So remember, you have to and from, going to be on the from side is where you're going to be logging that Again, you can see that ICOM will do it for near repeater all, so that's analog and digital. Near repeater DV, digital voice, or you just want to look up analog only or just to really simplify this. I know there's a lot to go over on all of this. If we're going to simplify this, there's really two functions that you're going to do. You're either going to talk or send a command. Those are the only two things you're going to do with your or handheld radio. You're either talking or sending a command. That command is going to your hotspot or to a repeater. One talk memory channel or use reflector. Again, when you're in DR mode, RPT2, always have the G as your eighth designator. And you can have other memory channels set up for command, whether it's linking, unlinking, echo link, or echo test, or information that's there. Like we just heard, if you don't switch back to talk, CQ from a command, here's like you're going to hear. In some instance, like on my repeater, it just ignored me totally. So I tried to link the 30 Charlie a couple times. It heard me the first time. Send the link command again and hit my, you're already there. Didn't tell me. Send it again. You're already there, dude. I went, what should I do here? Some repeaters will tell you, hey, you're already linked. Knock it off. You're already linked. You're where you want to be. You're already linked. One way to take a look at that as well is, again, why is this repeater not giving me anything? Hit that I command. The eighth character, 7 blanks I, eighth command, under I, or the eighth character set, that repeater will tell you exactly where it's at. Same thing, it's true if you unlink a repeater, or you unlink unlink a repeater or unlink a reflector. You send the unlink command, guess what? It's going to be unlinked. You send the unlink command again, it's going to go, I'm already unlinked. It'll either ignore you or it'll tell you system not linked. And just like we did on the echo test, I was teasing Grady here for a minute. If I'm on an echo test and I'm done with my echo test, make sure you switch back to use reflector or CQ. Just keep sending your echo test every time they trans. The repeater's going to come back and say, here you are, redo your own voice time back. It's like, Can you log that? I don't know.
So on the newer array with the DR, that 8 slots, the central drop down.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. That's the cool part behind it. So real basic operating principles here. So here's one repeater right there in the middle, WWATF. You have 4 people who are going to talk to one another on that repeater. And you'll notice that all of them under RPT1 have the repeater call sign, and the letter B. That's their 70 centimeter module, module B. RPT2, they all have the gateway. Now, again, if you strike the G out of RPT2, it's still going to work for a local QSO. Simply not going to go out over the gateway. For local repeaters, communication RPT2 is not strictly necessary, but it's just a good practice to keep RPT2 set up with that G designator, the 8th position. Now this is where it gets fun. Reflectors. So here we go. We have the 1, 2, 3, we got 4 different. That. Shut up a minute. 4 different repeaters that are all hooked up to a reflector. And reflector is XRF 330 alpha. Now, here's what's cool. You'll notice these 2 people are going into that repeater. This person down here is going into this repeater. This person here is going into the ADM repeater. This person here is going to the LDH repeater. The really cool part is that since all the repeaters show linked to that reflector, everyone's going to hear one another, even though they're on 4 different repeaters, because they're going through a reflector. That community chat room is really what it is. Again, vitally important, G, 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 G. They're going out over the gateway. So if you're trying to hook up to a reflector and you just don't feel like you're being heard, what are you missing? The Ginny. So what's a reflector? What's a room? What's a talk group? DMR. So in the world of D-Star, they're called reflectors. In the world of DMR, they call them talk groups. And in the world of Fusion, they're called rooms. Those are the different reflector systems. So D-Star really has 4. There's some other experimental ones that are out there. REF, XRF, DCS, and XLS. So the REF is probably the more foundation US trust reflectors that are there. Pretty strict categories that are in there. The other ones, like an XRF or a DCS or an XLX, anyone can set those up. You can set them up at home if you want to. You can set up your own reflector, believe it or not. It's just a matter of what are you going to point to it, really what it comes down to. Under DMR, 2 pretty well named reflector systems, Brandmeister and TGIF. Those are the 2 that are out there. And then on Fusion, you have the wireless extras, the YSF reflectors, and the SCS reflectors as well. So when you hear reflectors, when you hear talk groups, and when you hear rooms, pretty much all the same thing. Just do different little things depending upon if you're up D-Star, DMR, or Fusion.
You did.
Yes.
So you could, she set up over here, did it? Got the, you did.
Correct.
So going out all minute next.
So if the repeater is not linked anywhere, it's not going anywhere. Yeah. So say
Still not blindly broadcasting out.
no.
Yeah, if you haven't linked something.
Correct. Yeah.
Something kind to add to that, Robert. Hey, some others. First, yeah. So I go on the our repeater to the start here, and I link it to a reflector. There, and it's quite perfect. And you come on, and you're going to talk to me. That is going because we're still late. Reflection to reflect, and you may not know it.
Yeah.
Unless you did.
Yeah.
Before you started, you come on and go, hey, this is that I can handle this. I'm local or am I going? So
Yeah.
that would be the only way.
Yep.
Exactly.
So you've hung in this long. Hopefully this quiz is pretty simple. It's not meant to insult your intelligence. And a college professor, every time you pass out a quiz, every 2 weeks, stand in front of the room, you'd have the stack, okay, where's the stand? Those were written tests back in the day. We all most remember those. Yeah. They even stand in front of the room and take a big deep breath and you'd say, I hope this is not an insult to your intelligence. Yes, of course. So this time, is call sign registration absolutely necessary? No. Is it highly recommended? Absolutely it is. So how many character spaces are needed to send a command? It's 8. Yeah, right. Let's pay attention. Can you do local traffic only on a late repeater? Oh, yes, the up one. Oh, somebody said yes. Tell me why it's yes.
It's yeah.
Leave the G out of what part of it? RTT 1 or 2? Yeah. Nice. If you don't switch back to CQ after sending a command, what happens? It'll repeat the command. Or we'll get nothing back. We'll go, good, you're already there. Or we can program. No. And get the CTO. That's why I figure if it's possible, one would know. So there you go. Real quick crash course on it. Now here's the cool part. Please screw it up. Screw up trying to use your radio. Screw up trying to get it to a repeater. Screw up trying to link. Screw up trying to unlink. Why? You could practice. What else? How you learn. Screw it up. It's ham radio. We're not trying to cure cancer. We're not trying to cure world hunger. It's ham radio. That's the best part behind it. And for me, that was the easiest way that I learned it. I kept screwing up. Did you start that? Well, that's on fusion. Hey. Yeah, you went there 30 because I get these stored up vocally. Yeah, if you kept sending the link command to 30 Charlie, they're not going to be here. We're all going to hear you and probably like that. You know, now we never do that. They're afraid. That's maybe doing. I'll break this. You're already linked, Dan. Oh, darn it. That's why. Again, with it being really the first one that was out 25 years ago, I get it. It's complicated. It really is. That there's a logic and a sequence behind it. So if you link and you know you're successfully linked, go back to CQ. They'll keep sending more commands. Oh,
Dan, I have a question for you.
yes, there.
Boy. Let's say I link to 030 Charlie, and I get signed up on the phone with it, talking about lunch place.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't go in and do the unlink command. What happens to the repeater up on Skull Mountain after that?
2 things will happen. And it depends on how the repeater's programmed. So if we link or you link to 30 Charlie, walk away. Some repeaters will actually have a timeout that will happen. What I mean by a timeout is that if there's no local RF going through that repeater, in the case you're a PRA repeater, after 20 minutes, it'll just disconnect. I have that set up. Actually, I have a semi-permanent link set up on 30 Charlie on my repeater because I just want traffic. I want people to hear that it's in the air. So I had it semi-permanently linked to 30 Charlie. So there's constant traffic on there. Just because there's constant traffic on there, it's like, I don't want to listen to this. I want to go somewhere else. I want to link to Casey Washington. I want to link to my buddy in North Carolina. Do me a favor, just unlike my repeater, and you would get on EC5S going to unlike. Unlike, it drops it. AC5S linking to Charlotte D-Star. He sends the L command for whatever the Charlotte D-Star link is. He's connected, switches back to CQ, and he's done. Now, he forgets. We have Sun Lake. Typically, there's about a 20-minute cycle. And again, that could be programmed by the repeater owners.
That is how small now is.
Yes. So
It does disconnect.
after 20 minutes,
No local aura.
with no local RF,
Correct.
yes. But if you're on say you're on a net on a reflector, and you finally key up, anytime you key up to talk on the net, that timer restarts back to 20 minutes.
What about hotspots? Do they, or you just go directly to those?
Hotspots like directly to those. So
Well, yes, you're not doing anything.
yeah, it's your own. So I mean, you're only going to hear it as close as you are to your hotspot. Or if your neighbor's a ham, you might hear it. And that's again, unlike your hotspot, if you give them the frequency.
At least on the PyStar hotspots, it's programmable similarly.
Yes.
You have a default link, and you can move it. And if there's nothing local,
Yeah.
eventually it'll go back to
Yeah, on the PyStar, absolutely. Yeah. So PyStar, those are wondering what PyStar is. PyStar is kind of the gateway software that exists. Obviously, it's on Raspberry Pi. PyStar. How they came up with that.
Well, the way that physically works is you have the repeater and you hook to a Raspberry Pi, your Raspberry Pi is hooked to the internet, and that's how you could, one of these networks, XLX or whatever it is. That's how that works. So we're running Linux and we're running software called PyStar.
Data? Yes.
Stop there. So this linking and unlinking and talking and info doesn't sound like the kind of thing you'd want to see on your site. And I'm not saying how to on it, but think about it.
Yeah.
And you talk about it. Once you set up, you probably net divided.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. The nice part is that like the 5100, probably the more modern of the D-Star mobile radios, it's all touchscreen. So everything that we talked about here, going through different menus and things like that, you can set a touchscreen. Again, careful while driving, obviously.
Okay.
Right.
Also, I had a glitch and I had to reprogram the radio. It takes a little while for the programming sometimes to get through the system and actually make it work. In other words, I got it done right and it wasn't working. I came back a couple hours later if it worked. So I don't know why. Maybe it was my hotspot. I don't know why, but it just took a little while to get interesting. Like a Brandmeister.
Yes.
Brandmeister really does. Anyways,
Yeah. That's a good share. What else?
okay, so I understand. This was always a problem. So, so where the NPR pull up that list, nearest or whatever the other did. Okay, so once you pull that, then you have to go in and do these drop downs because it doesn't connect up. Yeah,
That it won't do. So if I'm on D-Star or Jesus. So here, I'll show you where. So now I'm not in DR. Now I'm in DR. I wanted to see where my near repeater was.
Which one?
PD.
There, right there.
Where you have on
Once you're up on,
Mhm.
you got to go in and tell to link.
So if I wanted to go to the monument of here, go hit that center button, that's the frequency. I'm already there.
If you want to go
Within,
somewhere else,
I'm going to go up to
as
yeah, I'm going to wait to the reflector. We need one of those cameras, like it'll be full.
at the bush.
Big budget. I don't know. Our CFO or treasurer, call our CFO or treasurer's not here. I mean, we can do it one. I don't know if it'll pass, but what else?
So earlier you transmitted, and I would have my radio set to your radio, and your call sign came up on my radio. So when that happens, I've never done this before, but I can change the to field so that your call sign, I can send a call
Yes.
to you. So I'm not really sure how that works. If I were say I were to drive up north and lose range of your repeater down here, and I were to connect to the squall repeater with your call sign in the to field, will that go directly through the gateway to where you were?
So long as both repeaters are on similar systems. So if for whatever reason, say so we're connected to IRCDDB. No, you don't think so? So we have to be on the same network. So that feature there is what's called call sign routing. Now there's arguments on both sides of the fence for call sign routing. So people say never use call sign routing because nobody can hear you. Then there's another camp that says everybody use call sign routing because just when I have a conversation with you and I'm not tying up a repeater, they're only going to hear me going into the repeater. They're not going to hear you coming back to me, and vice versa. So you can actually do, instead of the to field being CQ, 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 you can enter the person's call sign and it will be a direct connect to them. Like a semi-private one.
But we have to have the same network.
We have to be on, like, so if we're using the same repeater, obviously that would be easy. Now, like on the REF system, and I don't know if they still have it going or not. It's been a while since I've used call sign routing. Think of call sign routing in the world. You familiar with DMR? Okay, even better. Come back. Hey, small. As a great DMR implementation. Call sign routing is more or less saying, I just want to talk to Dan. I'm going to be the one that hears it. But if you go through, say, PRA repeater, and let's just for argument's sake, say we were on the same network as it relates to the same systems, it will actually route and go, well, where was Dan last heard? Oh, he was heard over here. And it will actually come out on that repeater. Which is kind of cool.
How about simplex with all this stuff?
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah.
Like if you refuse to do all of this,
It's simplex.
yeah, that's just a simplex.
Well, if you're on a repeater, it's when you're on duplex.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, yeah.
You're not talking like 146.2 type simplex. All day long you can.
Just not on 46 byte.
Understood. In the band allocation for digits.
Yes.
But then I could we could have 6 of us on the same simplex frequency. But if you did the call sign routing, only you hear it and the other 6 feet in or the other 5?
That's just a really good question.
Try it, field it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I feel that.
Yeah. Screw.
Simplest.
I don't know because,
Everybody.
This is no gateway of thinking. It's
yeah,
not like it's not like
Okay.
so sure not.
there's no record of where
The call sign, yeah, so I believe the call sign routing, don't quote me on this, but I believe the call sign routing is gateway dependent.
Okay.
someone's recording logging those.
So let's change it.
Yeah.
One step up from that. Let's say we're all at Dayton, and instead we want to all be on D-Star Digital instead of analog with our own tote squelch. Does that work?
Can you simplex only?
Well, but with some sort of a routing that our radios don't open up squelch when the other people talk and vice versa. That basically you have your own little private simplex.
That's where the frowned upon side comes with some people who do call sign routing. Now, call sign routing, now this would be interesting. If you're all using the same repeater, then I think it would fall under the premise almost like being dependent upon a gateway. You're all using the same repeater.
Again,
That's not going to go with it. Say there were 3 D-Star repeaters. Scott's using one, Paul's using another, I'm using a third one. And we wanted to say, hey, like, where are you at? Usually when you use call sign routing, it's a quick, hey, where are you at? Let's go here. See you later.
Gotcha.
And you just move away.
Yeah, I guess what I was after was maybe somewhat analogous to the promiscuous mode, and or where you could, well, the same as on analog if you had different groups using different tones.
Correct.
Let's use DMR with a proprietary talk group,
Yeah, there you go.
or use
You just connect.
Fusion with a
Yes.
GID. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you could on DMR do the great set up, make a talk group
Or contact
Yeah.
but for your talk group.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into next one.
Yes.
Good question.
So for soda, there is a bonus for doing the digital soda contact. I don't know about bonus, but you can activate a digital link. DMR, D-Star, Fusion, doesn't matter. All of them qualify, but you can't do that because as long as you're operating simplex software there. But I don't know about soda. I think you did. There's some kind of
There's calling frequency.
It is a mode.
yes.
So
Okay.
so
You can do it. Gets credit for doing a park activation on
C4FM for sure is a mode. Yeah.
I think D-Star would be in the
I bet it is too.
Yeah. So there's a simplex frequency for
Yeah.
deeper effect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, speaking of the diesel, is that
yeah.
Yeah.
There is somewhere it's yes.
believe it or not, D-Stars even made the HF. There's actually D-Star HF nets. As there are some D-Star Fusion HF nets as well.
Well, I mean, it's popular.
Yes.
Depends on geography.
Back in the Southeast, the home of the SEC conference, D-Star is pretty popular. You get up into this area, DMR is most popular, although Fusion is starting to grow. Get into the Midwest, probably Fusion. Mid-Atlantic is probably a mix of all three. You're in the Philadelphia, New York, New England, probably a mix of all three.
What about PRA?
Yes.
So you're correct.
Probably, I would say probably Fusion is the most popular.
145.67 is the D-Star
Simplex.
VHF simplex talk.
Here we go.
Met CC with D-Star?
Sure. I know it's a lot, but the best way, again, to really wrap your head around this is to use it, screw it up. Screw up your radio, screw up where your menu options. That's okay. I mean, but you're with a good company here when it comes to helping people get unstuck. And it's pretty much what we do around here. And it's okay to get stuck. It took me 4 months of getting stuck before good old Barry said, I think this is what you don't have programmed in the radio. Sure as any heck, he's spot on.
Yeah, it's replaced by the list of report.
Ooh. Well, I'm sure.
It was a N2SRK post. That's N2SRK.
D-Star users. Let's see if I had that.
Cities. All of lists.
Nope, I didn't have a long here. Few more days.
RT system. That's pretty good. Good. So one thing while he's looking that up, you program your N2SRK radio, you got repeat one or repeat. That's really all, other than your call sign going in. That's as much programming as really you have on the radio. To go elsewhere to these reflectors and these other features, we're talking about the jar mode. I think mode is a flash voice of what it is. DR is a feature or the stuff.
R.
C4FM, that's a mode. DMR, that's a mode. D-Star, that's a mode. But DR is a feature that's on the radio. What that feature does, like Dan talked about those legacy radios, where you had to do 10 entries, is what KPR off seems roughly, to be able to, you can buy it in the link, the link, and in the DR feature, the DR will allow you to do that. Is it brings up a link, like a street, you scroll up or down, if you wish to talk to S. It's that hard. They're not pre-programming all of that in through your RT systems or whatever software. You're not cheating a whole bunch of it. But with DMR, there are some of those you have to program in the front end. There is a DR feature that allows you to do it, randomly do it. This is programmed into the radio. That now become a little more clear next time. The DMR for a piece of program. Repeat one, repeat two, and your calls not kind of done as long as you got a water wait. But the DMR feature will on credit. I think that helped a little bit.
The other thing I would say is that Dan made this reference 2 or 3 times. Most people will, you're not going to get on all these different networks, reflectors and all that. You're going to maybe get on 1 or 2, that you find interesting. And almost 100% of the time, you're going to program your radio with RT system software. Okay? But you don't, it's not that you don't need to know all this and understand the DR mode and all that kind of stuff, but bottom line is you go to 030 Charlie to listen, right? You're going to have a memory channel that is set up. When you go to that memory channel and you key your radio up, you're going to go to our repeater and you're going to connect it to 030 Charlie. Okay? So some of the stuff we went over tonight is really deep down, very high level. From the standpoint of just using your radio, I would highly recommend you spend the $25 in this RT systems. And then, it's also easy for us to help train you in terms of you want to go to this reflector because it has atomics. It's a worldwide communications reflector. You want to go there? We can show you all the software very easily how to program the radio to go there. Okay, and then you dump it to the radio, one and done, I think. So software should bring.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to show off here, so I was asking you about where you find reflector. DStarInfo.com. list of running reflectors, and you can also see status of those reflectors as well. So very shortly, very, very popular wide area lake feeders that are on there. Here's a list of all of them that are on. You can see that on all of them, whether it's in Utah, whether it's in Italy, Indiana, the West Coast, it's SAR UK.
And is this just the refs or also?
This is just the rest.
Yep.
VStartInfo.com. Pretty good one. What else?
Thank you.
My pleasure. Again, I know it's really complicated. I get it. And when it's the big brother, when it's out there, they kind of set the rules. This is how we're going to do it. Okay. And you can see some of the evolution that came out of it. Yeah, quite frankly, I think Yasu did a great job with system fusion. I think it's probably the most simple to use. It's just touch screen. Touch screen. I want to go here. Done. I don't have to worry about, oh man, I'm late. Or am I going to send an echo test? Just don't have that on the fusion side. But again, these are a lot of fun, as you can see. Dozens and dozens and dozens. It's not hundreds of different just REF reflectors.
And on the first site, the D-Star net lights up. We're going to try to herd all the cats into here. How are we going to do that? There's going to be a cheat sheet that comes out and says everything that was on here in 7 steps.
Well, the nets are simple because everyone's going to just program their radio below that. Get it?
Makes sense.
We're not going to do a nationwide net or a regional net, so we can very easily send out a.
So if you're using
K0PR1,
then RPT1, this would be set at K0 PRA B, RPT2, we want probably good to leave it at G. It's not going to go anywhere if the repeater's not played anywhere. Local traffic open, that's fine. You can call site.
and your call's not, and that's it. That's all there is to it.
So it's good.
Well, it's like Dan Burr, these